Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas suggesting Americans take matters into their own hands when it comes to pro-Palestinian protesters. Cotton's comments came after crowds of activists protesting the Israel-Hamas war blocked roads and shut down bridges in major cities like San Francisco, Brooklyn, Seattle, and Chicago yesterday. Take a look at what the senator said on Fox News.
I have to say, Sandra, I agree with you that you have to get to these criminals early. If something like this happened in Arkansas on a bridge there, let's just say I think there'd be a lot of very wet criminals that have been tossed overboard, not by law enforcement, but by the people whose road they're blocking. If they glued their hands to a car or the pavement, well, probably pretty painful to have their skin ripped off. But I think that's the way we'd handle it in Arkansas. And I would encourage most people anywhere that get stuck behind criminals like this who are trying to block traffic to take matters in their own hands. There's only usually a few of them, and there's a lot of people being inconvenienced. It's time to put an end to this nonsense. I sympathize with law enforcement having to deal with this, but I think it's time for private citizens who are the ones being inconvenienced here when they're confronted with these protesters just to solve matters on their own before the police even show up.
I'm thinking that's a little over the top. I don't know.
It's beyond. What? It's beyond that. I mean, police officers would be the first to say, "Don't do that."
Please don't say that or do that.
Cops should say, "Please don't do that. Please don't say that. Please don't take matters into your own hands."
Rip people's skin off?
You know, Mike, there are a few things. I'll just put it this way. I doubt Senator Cotton is any more exasperated than I am when I see people doing this, blocking people who are going to work or trying to take their kids to a doctor's appointment or trying to make an airplane at O'Hare so they can get home in time to see a kid's ball game or a recital. Or just to get home to the people they love. There are ways to protest, and there's ways I think not to protest, and this is extraordinarily counterproductive to any cause that you're pushing. But here we have a guy, Tom Cotton, that went to Harvard, undergrad and law school, served in the military, who's talking about throwing people off the Golden Gate Bridge, ripping their skin off. We had a United States senator going on a network, national network, suggesting that Americans rip skin off of people's hands because they're aggravated, and to take matters into their own hands. This is just beyond stupid on his part, beyond dangerous on his part to say this. And I must say, this goes, Tom Cotton that used to be on this show, pre-Trump, would never have said something like that. No. Never.
No.
Tom Cotton that we interviewed time and again on this show would have never said anything like this. This shows how violence and violent rhetoric has become normal practice in the Republican Party. These are the people who are preparing for a guy who has promised to be a dictator from day one.
Listen, nothing is more infuriating, and I could not measure the anger within me if I were disrupted in terms of getting someone to a hospital. Member of the family was stuck in traffic because of what they did on the Golden Gate Bridge or whatever, wherever it was. But you know what would happen if I get out of my car and grabbed one of the protesters from their cars and threw them off the Golden Gate Bridge? I would be doing 15 to 20 years for manslaughter. There's no doubt about that. Right. That's what would happen.
That's what he was saying.
That's what he said. Throw people off the bridge.
I wouldn't strip anybody's skin off.
Rip their skin off.
But it gets to a lot. Eddie Glaude and I were talking just prior to coming out here. There was a poll. As a matter of fact, I have the numbers. There's a poll taken. I was just looking at it yesterday. 1/3, 34% of Americans would like to go and settle in another country if they were free to do so. Half of Americans, 51% of those under the age of 35, want to resettle elsewhere, as do 39% of those 35 to 54 years of age. Why is this happening? It's happening because people like Tom Cotton and people like the guy who is in trial today, downtown Manhattan, They continually run this country down, that there's something wrong with this country, that there's something going on in this country that is against you and me, average citizens. They have done this. They've roiled the pot in this country to a point where the anger, the unspoken anger of people, the unearned anger of people has disrupted who we are.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.